On the popular show Alaskan Bush People, the Brown family has invited audiences into their rugged life off the grid for years. Viewers have grown attached to every member of the self-proclaimed wolf pack, but maybe none more so than Joshua "Bam Bam" Brown. Known for his quiet smarts and steady hand, Bam was often the calm in the middle of his family's unconventional life. He was the planner, the thinker, the one who tried to stay out of the drama, but in May of 2022, a horrific crash on a Washington highway threw him into the center of a heartbreaking tragedy that no one could have seen coming. Today, we're uncovering the devastating details of that day and the ripple effects it had on the reality TV star's life. To really get the weight of this tragedy, you have to understand the man himself. Joshua "Bam Bam" Brown, born September 18, 1984, is the second oldest of Billy and Ami Brown's 7 kids. When Alaskan Bush People started in 2014, Bam immediately stood out. While his siblings were often loud and impulsive, Bam was the intellectual, the one who lived by the motto, "Respect the danger," a philosophy that came from a life lived in the wild. Growing up mostly off-grid, Bam's education was anything but typical. He was often seen with a book, and his articulate way of speaking set him apart. He became the family's go-to guy for anything technical, the person they turned to for a logical solution. This sometimes caused a bit of friction, with his siblings occasionally seeing him as a know-it-all. But it was that same quality that made him so vital, whether he was wiring a cabin or navigating the family's boat through rough waters. He was also seen as the enforcer of his father Billy's rules, the most serious of the siblings, who seemed to carry the weight of their unique life on his shoulders. This serious and private nature made him a bit of a mystery. While his family's lives played out on camera, Bam kept his personal life to himself. This desire for privacy eventually led him to make a huge decision. In 2017, Bam shocked everyone by announcing he was leaving the show. The reason? He'd fallen in love with Alison Kagan, a field producer who had worked on the show. He chose love over fame, stepping away from the cameras to build a life with her. They bought an old ferry boat, renamed it Fathom This, and started the massive project of renovating it together. It was the perfect symbol of his new life, a complex, hands-on job with the partner he chose, away from the public eye. He did come back to the show in 2019, but his time away cemented his reputation as the most independent member of the Brown family. He showed that his own happiness came before the demands of reality TV. This quiet strength would be tested in the most awful way imaginable on a spring day in Washington. Before the crash in May 2022, the Brown family was already standing on shaky ground, reeling from the loss of their patriarch, Billy Brown. For years, viewers watched Billy lead his family with a deep love for his wife, Ami, and their kids. His dream of a self-sufficient life was the very heart of the show. Billy's health had been a worry for years, but on February 7, 2021, the family's worst fears came true. At 68, Billy suffered a fatal seizure at their home in Washington. His death, announced by his son Bear, sent a shockwave through the fan community. The man who had taught his children everything about survival was gone. The loss left a huge void. The seasons that followed were heavy with grief as the family tried to figure out a world without him. This was especially true for Bam Bam. As the second oldest and the most level-headed, much of the responsibility fell on his shoulders. He became a rock for his mother and siblings, pouring his energy into North Star Ranch, the 435-acre property that was Billy's final dream. He was trying to build a future for his family on a foundation of grief, all while dealing with his own loss. It was in this fragile state, just over a year after his father's death, that tragedy would hit again. This wasn't the only hardship. Their matriarch, Ami Brown, had been fighting her own battles. In 2017, she was diagnosed with advanced lung cancer and given a slim chance of survival. The family moved from Alaska to Washington for her treatment. Miraculously, she went into remission in 2018. But her health remains a constant worry. In February 2025, she was rushed to the hospital with pneumonia, chest pains, and breathing trouble. Her son Bear reported that she was placed in a medically induced coma to allow her lungs to heal before eventually recovering and returning home. On top of everything, in 2020, the family's beloved North Star Ranch was devastated by the Palmer Fire, which destroyed much of the homestead they had worked so hard to build. They were literally rebuilding from ashes when Billy died. Layer after layer of tragedy had piled up on the family. This was the world the Browns were living in when Bam Bam got behind the wheel on May 20, 2022. May 20, 2022, started like any other day in Okanogan County, Washington. Bam was driving his GMC truck northbound on U.S. Route 97, just a few miles north of the town of Riverside. Around 2:30 in the afternoon, the ordinary day was shattered. A black Chevrolet Camaro was heading southbound on the same highway. Inside were two women. For reasons that still aren't fully clear, the Camaro lost control, crossed the double yellow line, and veered directly into Bam's path. In that split second, Bam was faced with a driver's worst nightmare. Living by his mantra, respect the danger, he reacted instantly. He yanked the wheel to the right, trying to dodge the Camaro. His truck shot off the road and into a ditch. But there wasn't enough time. The two vehicles collided at their corners. The front of Bam's GMC was heavily damaged, but the impact on the Camaro was catastrophic. The crash left the Camaro mangled in the middle of the highway. Emergency services rushed to the scene. The driver of the Camaro, 28-year-old Gabriela Garcia Harrison, was critically injured and airlifted to a hospital. Tragically, her 24-year-old passenger, Lorena Martinez Gonzalez, died at the scene. Some reports later indicated that Gabriela Garcia Harrison also died from her injuries. 2 young lives were lost in an instant. Bam Bam survived the crash. He was taken to a local hospital, treated for minor injuries, and released. He was physically okay, but he had just been part of a horrific event that claimed 2 lives. As news of the crash got out, the big question was, who was at fault? For a public figure like Bam Bam, this could have been a legal and public relations nightmare. But the Washington State Patrol's investigation was clear and quick. Troopers stated officially that Joshua Bam Bam Brown was not at fault. The investigation confirmed the Camaro driver lost control and crossed into his lane. They even credited Bam for his quick reaction, noting that his attempt to swerve off the road was a clear effort to avoid the crash. This official report cleared him of any legal trouble. It was unknown if drugs or alcohol were a factor for the other driver, but while the law cleared his name, the emotional weight of being in a fatal accident is something no ruling can take away. Bam, a man who valued his privacy, was suddenly in the headlines for the worst possible reason. The fact that he walked away with minor injuries while 2 others didn't is a heavy burden to bear, often leading to what's known as survivor's guilt. In the weeks and months after, Bam retreated from public view. He didn't speak about the accident, and his social media went quiet. The Brown family also remained silent, choosing to handle the trauma privately. The accident was never mentioned on Alaskan Bush People, a decision likely made to protect Bam and to avoid sensationalizing a painful event. The public response was largely supportive, with fans offering sympathy for Bam and condolences for the families of the women who died. He was left to deal with the aftermath in his own way, supported by his family and his partner, Allison Kagan, but ultimately alone with the memory of that day. The May 2022 car crash was another devastating blow to a family that has faced relentless hardship. The Browns' story in recent years has been one of resilience in the face of constant struggle. They've dealt with the death of their patriarch, the near-fatal illness of their matriarch, the loss of their home, and deep family fractures. One of the most painful struggles has been with the oldest son, Matt Brown, and his battle with addiction. His journey led to a painful estrangement from the family. Over the years, Matt has made public allegations against his parents and the show's production, creating a wound that has yet to fully heal. Through it all, Bam Bam has become a pillar of stability for the family. Since his father's death, he has taken on a leadership role, focusing on the work needed to secure their future at North Star Ranch. His relationship with Allison Kagan remains a strong, grounding force in his life. As of mid-2025, the future of Alaskan bush people is uncertain. The show has been on a long break, with no new episodes since late 2022. While Bear Brown has claimed the show is on hiatus and not officially cancelled, legal documents and Ami Brown's own court testimony referring to the show in the past tense suggest its run may be over after 14 seasons. Regardless of the show, the Browns are moving forward. Ami continues to be the resilient matriarch, despite her health issues. The siblings are finding their own ways, with some starting families of their own. Bam remains the anchor, deeply involved in the family homestead while also exploring his own interests like photography. The story of Joshua Bam Bam Brown is a sobering reminder that life is fragile and unpredictable. He was the quiet, steady thinker of the Brown clan, but on May 20, 2022, he was thrown into the middle of a horrific car accident that tragically ended the lives of Gabriela Garcia Harrison and Lorena Martinez Gonzalez. It's an undisputed fact that Bam was not at fault. Law enforcement credited his quick reflexes with trying to avoid the crash. He walked away with minor physical injuries, but the psychological toll is a burden he will likely carry forever. His silence on the matter isn't indifference, it's a sign of his private nature and his respect for the tragedy that occurred. This event didn't happen in a vacuum. It was another painful chapter for a family that has endured so much loss and hardship. Through it all, Bam has shown a quiet strength. He continues to be a rock for his family, a devoted partner to Allison, and a man trying to build a future in the shadow of immense grief. His story is ultimately a heartbreaking tragedy and a powerful portrait of a quiet man navigating a sea of loss with strength and dignity. We wish him and the entire Brown family peace and healing.